Thank you so much for joining us here on World Rainforest Day. I really want to thank the crew that are working behind the scenes to help put together such an awesome day of such diverse speakers from so many different backgrounds and languages and cultures and, interests. So, this presentation, this is powered by Mycelium. My name is Monty Sharma. I am currently presenting from Newcastle, New South Wales in Australia, which is on the East Coast. It's about 2 hours north of Sydney. And today we're going to talk about a pretty hot topic in the world right now. And it is powered by Mycelium. So I now don't have a normal name in my in my communities. I'm just known as the local fun guy. I do enjoy having a good laugh pretty much every day, and although it can be quite serious, I really enjoy sharing my passions and nature in really fun ways. A lot of my work here, I run workshops and deep nature tours and sell products that are all inspired to help people integrate nature and just share this coming back to remembrance that nature is just like, beautiful thing that we all feel empowered by. So I've had Urban Botanica Collective since 2018, and these are just some of the companies and some of my background, my degrees and stuff, but really big shout out to Ecology Academy, Newcastle University, and Ecoversity have all helped me become, the leader that I am today. So, I know like fungi are just so freaking interesting, aren't they? Like, this picture here was done by a company called Milo Leather, and it's like they make mushroom textiles. And Paul Stamets, who wrote this quote here, he's been a big player in the mushroom world. And even in my life, when I met him in Costa Rica at a Vision Music Festival, and we had a good chat, and he's just such an interesting guy, and he really feels authentically here for bridging this world between fungi and humans, but also just sharing information, really making it inclusive to anyone. So fungi really are the keystone species that create forever thickening layers of soil, which allow the future of humans, of human, plants, and animal generations to flourish. So that's a really powerful observation, and kind of has been, I guess, my mantra for a while. And today we're going to go do some deep diving, but because we have so much to touch, and thankfully the guys have given me a good amount of time to try and get this information through to you guys. We're just going to be really scraping the surface of humus. We're just going to be scraping that topsoil and just getting a little bit of a portal view into the future of fungi. And the reason why I put together this, the intention was I spent 4 or 5 years in engineering. I came out of that really just soul destroyed, really didn't have any direction. And fungi have been this amazing grounding experience that has really, with the onset of so many hectic disasters and catastrophes and, things dying, it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but fungi really helped me see that. So I really hope that this presentation today just instills a little bit of confidence and grounding and helps you guys feel more connected to yourself and also to the future of everyone on this planet. So today we're going to be kind of focusing on the family of fungi and just their role in local ecology. We're going to talk about materials and textiles, functional medicine, cleaning our planet, and then agricultural agriculture applications. And when I say agriculture, like it's probably more like permaculture based, but just generally speaking, just looking at food and how we can do that. Feel free to, pop your questions in. I've got my little display here so I can see you guys chatting to me. And otherwise, we're going to have a Q&A at the end anyways. So just, write down your questions and we can have like a full-on discussion at the end if you want. So rightio. So fungi found all over the world. Like, until we actually slow down and we know what we're looking at, if I was able to teleport to you guys and, we could walk out your front door and we could go look somewhere close by, regardless of whether you were in a city, whether you were, in suburbia, if you're in rural, if you were out in the mountains, you would find fungi. They're absolutely everywhere. And this is a really good thing because mushrooms kind of have become this amazing keystone species that has the capacity to just like reproduce really amazingly. Like they just have like how simple, like, I mean, I know it is complex what we're looking at here, but in its simplest form, this is actually quite beautiful how little it takes for an organism to be all over the planet. And so let's talk a little bit about how mushrooms move around the globe. So essentially there's these spores which are released from the mushroom cap. And when these two spores land together, they like end up making the next generation of mycelium. And this single strand of mycelium that is created is called a hypha. And then that hypha starts probing and moving around through the substrata. And that could be wood, it could be soil, it could be inside an insect, it could be, and we'll talk more about this through the presentation. And then that mycelium eventually gets to a point where it's fully inoculated that substrata and it goes, hey, we need to fruit more mushrooms so we can go to the next thing because we're running out of wood here, or we're running out of resource, so we have to go to the next object, the next food source, the next bit of decomposition. So it creates this little, so essentially what happens is, I'll move my finger over the side. So there's a strand of mycelium, it wraps on itself, it creates a little ball, and then it starts to form that ball into the next fruited body, and then the circle continues. And look, this is a very generic thing. Like there's a lot of mushrooms in the world. Like there is an insane amount of mushrooms. And this here is just for like an agaricus species, which just has a stem and a cap. But this is a very simplified version of a mushroom life cycle. There's many different ways that this happens, but I'm really trying to like be more generalized today because of the time constraints. So there's 3 different kind of families of fungi that exist. And there is mycorrhizal fungi. Now, these guys, like, I know you shouldn't have your favorites, but I really, really love mycorrhizal fungi. Here, I go to my local state forest, and in there's kind of mixes between temperate rainforest to like pine forest to like just like Australian bushland. And mycorrhizal fungi are found through each ecosystem. And as you can see, this beautiful Amanita muscari, which is on the top right, this beautiful orange mushroom. This is a type of mycorrhizal fungi. And yeah, we'll talk more specifically about these guys in the upcoming slides. And then this guy, I hope you don't have arachnophobia or anything, but this is an Australian Huntsman, which is a type of they look really scary, but they're actually non-venomous. They actually kill their prey by just kind of pouncing on them as predators, and then like they use their fangs and their stuff to kind of kill their victim. But as you can see, it's actually been inoculated with mushrooms. And this is a type of parasitic fungi that has taken over this insect. This is a new find for me. I've found this running mushroom walks for the last 4 months. We've found a few of these specimens just sitting on pine trees. And yeah, they essentially take over the body of the host, end up climbing up to a high vantage point, and then the air currents then fly past the organism, and those spores then land on its next victim, and bam. And then finally, we have saprophytic fungi, and these are broken into like primary decomposers and secondary decomposers. Secondary is probably what you're most likely to have seen because you would have eaten oyster mushrooms or whitecap mushrooms or Swiss browns or something like that. All of these are secondary kind of mushrooms, but primary are like the ones that are eating like the hardwoods of the forest and turning that into soil. So they're topsoil developers. Now, so mycorrhizal fungi. So there's like two main types, and I've got a little pointer here. So you can see here, mycorrhizal fungi have this capacity to grow mycelium and then actually connect onto the roots of plants. Now, the main difference that's happening here is there's ectomycorrhizal and there's endomycorrhizal. And so ecto meaning external, endo meaning in. You can see the actual mycelial strands have actually penetrated the root system, moved through the cellular structure, and have actually made a full-on physical connection with the tree. Now, what this allows to happen is the actual they actually have the capacity to exchange nutrients physically through this. They are able to communicate on a very it's a very connective way to communicate. So they're literally like, it's like their nervous system is literally connected. So they're communicating, and we are only really just touching the surface of like understanding how trees communicate, let alone mushrooms. So this is a whole untapped kind of phenomenon that's happening all over the world, all over in our soil, and it's just waiting. We're just waiting for us to really understand. And then finally, ectomycorrhizal just grows along the edges of the roots, and this really helps with like nutrient uptake. So the plant can like essentially ask for nitrogen or ask for potassium or some type of trace element. And yeah, the mushrooms will bring that, and in exchange, trees are really good at pulling in carbon, so then they'll exchange that carbon to the mushrooms, and yeah, it's this beautiful symbiotic relationship that happens. And yeah, over 250,000 plant species have this potential association with mycorrhizal fungi. So you can see why I really love this type of family of fungi. Next up, we have the mysterious world of parasitic fungi. How funky is that? So this top picture is a moth that has been inoculated with a parasitic fungi. You can see all those fruited bodies coming out the top of its back. And then, this is another moth that's been, kind of exploding out with fruited bodies of parasitic fungi. And it doesn't only stop there. Like, parasitic fungi actually also exist within trees. They actually take down quite large trees, which is pretty common. Like, if we have a big, massive mother tree, there's not many things that can kind of compete with it. So here in Australia, at least, and a lot of other tropical zones, we have to kind of rely on the strangler fig or parasitic fungi to kind of create that natural kind of hierarchy of nature to kind of have the parasites come in and take that tree down. So this is, we as humans, we're like, parasites are bad, we don't want them, but they're actually a really crucial part of the ecology of the world, controlling insect populations, because without them, ants would just be running rampant everywhere. Once again, creating that next generation of trees, like opening up the canopy of a large rainforest to create the next generation of plants to come through from the seed bank. So really, really interesting stuff. And then this is a time lapse that was done by these amazing guys I follow on Instagram. Another Perspective YT. So these are actually shiitake mushrooms that have just fruited. I'll play that again because it is pretty freaking epic. So you can see these shiitakes are on a compressed hardwood. they've inoculated the block, and yeah, this is shot over 3 days. These shiitake mushrooms just all just fruiting out in a massive kind of cluster. And if you haven't had shiitake mushrooms, would highly, highly recommend that you wrap your mouth around them. Yes, 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 Nora Lee, for sure. They got to be one of my favorite. I have shiitake mushrooms every single week. They're delicious. I love them with just a bit of butter or ghee, and that's it. Sometimes in ramen soup as well. So without these amazing kind of species of fungi, the world would just be this stinky, like anaerobic sludge. Like it would just be so gross here. Like we'd just be walking around in our own mess and sludge. So without these amazing saprophytic fungi all over the Earth's surface, we just wouldn't be here. So we have a massive amount of gratitude to pay to, I mean, generally the species of, or all the organisms, but yeah, these guys are helping every single day. Like right now, we can kind of imagine that these mushrooms are like kind of in the forest right now, and they're sitting on it like some wood and some leaf compost and like, a decaying fruit or like some animal that's passed away or something. And they're doing that work to actually turn everything back into topsoil, beautiful, nutritious, delicious topsoil that everything relies on to live. So including us. Now, fabric. So my background, my bachelor's is in industrial design. So kind of an engineering background, but I really enjoy the process of something being created. I really enjoy watching someone innovate something new into the world. And so today we're going to actually be talking about mushroom-based textiles. So this is from Mycologist, who's the Gunny founder, and she says fabric innovations will play a crucial role in making fashion more circular. But before that to happen, brands need to place bets and take risks. So I guess the takeaway from that is since the industrial age, we've really been stuck in this way of like mass production, trying to keep up. So what we really need, and we've just been taking resources, we've just been taking that for granted. And now we need to really start looking at the whole life cycle of what we're creating. So that begins from the moment that something starts growing, like for example, a cow. So on average, a cow, and this is a very generic kind of calculation because it could be how old is a cow, what species is it, how big is it, like it could be more or less, probably more likely more, but on average the approximate cow takes about 160 liters of water, 8 kilograms of CO2, and produce over a kilo of leather, which generates 5 kilograms of organic waste. Now, mushroom cultivation to make a mushroom leather, to make around, instead of it creating waste, it's actually getting our waste, and we're then using that waste to grow the mushrooms. So about 1.5 kilograms of waste. That could be sawdust. It could be like cocoa coir. It could be some type of compost. It could be so many different things. Like mushrooms they can eat anything hydrocarbon based. So yeah. And about 5.6 liters of water, not much. And the two kind of most important parts of this is scalable. So it means that we can up and down our production. Like you can't up and down scale production of cows. Like you only have a certain amount of land. You need to make a certain amount of money every year to have that turnover. But in a lab, in a warehouse, you can increase and decrease. You can change the molds. The molds can be suited to make optimum cuts of leather. Whereas like a cow, you've got this really arbitrary kind of shape that you need to try and fit the fashion into. So that's also a really interesting thing is we can actually just go, okay, well, you're making this bag to optimally fit that leather bag into production. How big would that sheet need to be? And we can just make that sheet the size that you require. Now, we're also, then you kind of think, oh man, like I've picked up mushrooms and, they kind of seem a bit weak. They seem like they wouldn't be able to handle that. But, like we've got companies all over the world right now that are really testing this material to have the same quality as leather. And this is a really amazing thing. And that I really love about mushrooms is they're naturally hydrophobic, antifungal, antibacterial, and once the product has finished, it just gets reabsorbed into the ground. So this is kind of really cool because naturally we need to put like chemicals or put some type of coating onto our products in order for this to actually happen. But mushrooms don't want to. A lot of mushrooms that make mushroom leather don't actually want to break down just yet. They're actually in it for the long haul. The mycelium is super aggressive. They kind of set up and they just want to keep creating fruiting bodies. So they kind of naturally already have those properties. We don't hydrophobic. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that's a really good joke or not, but is hydrophobic. What are they scared of? Hydrophobic just essentially means that the surface of the material naturally repels water. And so, for example, shoes, we need to use like conditioner and oils and stuff that go back into the leather because over time they deteriorate out of the cow leather, whereas they naturally have that within the framework of the material. And it's really just the beginning. So top left, you can see like a little bottle in some white kind of block. And this is companies now, especially wine companies are really getting into this, where they actually are making wine like mushroom molds. And so they mold their wine bottle to the size of their bottle. They pack it up in this mushroom mycelium. So essentially what that is it's just like a bunch of organic waste that mycelium has like inoculated. And then the product's just sitting inside it. So if you make a mold that's a certain shape and size and you fill it up with substrata and inoculate it, it will just mold perfectly to whatever the mold is. And this is a perfect example down the bottom right of molding a chair. So we also are really starting to understand how we can make three-dimensional objects from mycelium. And then you can see here two really refined products. So for example, like, the bottom right, I'd be curious to sit on it just because it's mushroom leather. But, if we want a really refined product, this is also a possibility. It just takes a bit more care and also you need very specific species that will create that level of detail. And and then kind of bottom left, mushroom hat. So yeah, this is I really hope to have a mushroom hat very soon. I think mushroom leather is becoming more and more accessible. It's just pretty expensive right now, so I'm kind of waiting for the right time. And I've got a few amazing friends who kind of do textile stuff, so I'd love for them to make me a hat. Now, this is like just to like share. So this was in north part of Costa Rica in a place called Monte Verde. And this is a cloud forest. So this tree, like just if you really get close and you can see every single surface area of that tree is being used for moss, bromeliads, like all these amazing epiphytic plants. And it was kind of when I got to this tree, there was like 30 different birds. Just like I stood there for like 20 minutes. And there's like 30 birds coming eating from this tree because it's a fig tree. And it's got these amazing, delicious berries that the whole forest relies on, this massive mother tree. And it was kind of a remembrance that like, this is what I strive for in my life. I hope I can be that grounded, that deeply rooted within myself and within my surroundings that I can create this level of abundance to everyone around me, anyone who needs to eat, anyone who needs, like even the water storage capacity of this tree would just be absolutely insane. And it's just a remembrance that here, mushrooms are actually our closest ancestor and have been a really crucial part of the evolutionary journey of humans to get to this point. So much that we're actually closer to mushrooms than we are to plants. So they are as much us as we are them. And without them, we wouldn't be here. So we have a massive depth of gratitude to, I guess, systems like this, but then also remembering that we are from nature. This was the state we were originally in. This was the mindset of, abundance mindset. Only taking what we should take, like sharing, like gifting, like always creating this beautiful harmony within ourselves and anywhere we go. So I think mushrooms really remind me of that. And speaking of, because we are really closely related to mushrooms, they also, because they are our ancestors, all these molecules and amazing compounds and stuff that they create actually fit within our biochemistry very easily. And this here is a Penicillium mold, which is one of the first fungi-based medicines that we kind of found. And it's been so crucial to us surviving on this planet. It saved so many freaking lives. And it's effectively costs nothing to make because it's a mold. It's just, something like you would just find on like a decaying banana or orange or something. Like, it's very easy to cultivate this stuff. So this is probably one of the greatest biological findings in the history of mankind. And so the mainstream world, and also like indigenous and traditional kind of people have been using mushrooms, but really the kind of the Eastern world has only just kind of been using it very very untapped, I would say. So we're going to talk a little bit just about some of the compounds that exist in medicinal mushrooms. Now, this is normally an hour and a half presentation that I normally give on this, because we talk about how the immune system works, how the medicinal mushrooms kind of interact with the immune system. So today, we're only going to be able to talk about this for a very short amount of time, keeping an eye on the time. So every single mushroom that you have, whether that just be a field mushroom or it be like some exotic, like, lion's mane or turkey tail or reishi or tremella or something like that, all these are immunologically active. So they're all helping the modulation of our body. So modulation is a really important word to actually touch on here, because say, for example, like, let's talk about a stimulant that we all know, coffee. So if you have a coffee, what happens? Your body naturally is going to lift up, and you're going to be experiencing an elevated state of, focus and, energy levels and all these things. Now, that's known as stimulant. What mushrooms are actually doing when they enter your body is they're modulating you to the state of where you need to be. So if you're really upregulated, let's say you're like really anxious and you're really, really like, maybe your immune system's like flaring up and I've got a little bit of dermatitis on my right part of my cheek. So my body's like fighting itself. We also find people who are like immune compromised, having their immune system like flare up and do things. So like mushrooms will come in and down regulate you back into a normal state of inflammation, for example. And this could act like there's so many body functions that are happening right now in our body. So essentially your body, once you start having this stuff consistently, I'm saying like a minimum a month, every single day, you need to have it like any other medicinal in the world. And you will naturally, based on the medicinals that are within the mushroom, be able to experience that modulation back into balance. So let's talk a little. Oh, no, wait. Before we move on, psilocybin. So I am a massive advocate of making psilocybin legal. Here, there's studies happening all over the world. I actually ran some mushroom workshops, and I actually met a cancer patient who actually went through the studies here in Australia, down in Melbourne. And yeah, he was terminally ill at like a stage 5 cancer. So he's like really not well. And the mushrooms really supported him and made him come in acceptance of, what he was experiencing. And it's already been proven to be really helping people who have massive amounts of anxiety. And psilocybin like the compound itself is just like naturally designed to fit into the cortex of our brain and open it. Like there's not many compounds that are in the world that are able to do this. It's like it was meant to be being used this way. It's meant to be opening up our mind. So I'm not going to be talking about psilocybin in this presentation, but I have some resources which I can direct you guys to so you guys can learn more about it. And we'll talk about those later. Yep, so we're just talking about medicinals, and I really want to start this off with, like, I have actually created a document which I can send you all to. I might just throw it in the chat before we end. And yeah, this stuff, like, I'm not going to be talking about it. Like, this stuff is just going to save you. It's going to heal you beyond all recognition. I'm saying this stuff is here to support you. This stuff is here to support you on your journey. And there's stuff that has been medically proven, and the stuff that's still getting tested. So I actually have a document that has the case studies, stuff that's been trialed and we know is absolutely happening in our body. And then we've got these other things which we just know from, like, I guess, indigenous use, like what we know from, 200 years ago or whatever. Like, what do we know are an association with a medicinal, and those things may help you. So we're just going to, like, I can send you through that stuff. It's all good. Now, Beta-Glucans. So Beta-Glucans are a really amazing kind of medicinal. And they're not only in mushrooms, they're actually in our plants, like all our vegetables. And they're this little beautiful sugary kind of compound that exists. It's a polysaccharide. So polysaccharide is just this little sugary chain molecule. And this stuff has, like, we have like B3s, B4s, and B6s. And then there's like 200, like, there's just so many different types. But what we've been able to conclude from these beta-glucans is the health benefiting properties are kind of anti-diabetic, anti-cancer, anti-obesity, modulating the immune system, lowering, like, all these amazing, like, stage 1 conditions that normally eventuate to something that's more serious. So the reason why this is here, water soluble, is in the extraction process to get this compound out of mushrooms, you need to use a water deconcoction to get that molecule out. And then on the other molecules, you might see alcohol soluble, which might be the next one. And that just needs to be extracted through an alcohol. So this is how the compound is pulled out of the mushroom. Now, Ganodermic acid. Now, this is a really, really powerful one. So essentially, Ganodermic acid is this type of terpenoid that is just a powerhouse compound for the immune system. And this is something that's found quite highly in turkey tail and reishi. Now, turkey tail has actually been getting clinically used with cancer treatment because of its natural anti-cancer properties, anti-tumor properties. And these terpenoids just demonstrate such an amazing spectrum of just healing, like, and wealth of health. Like, it's just such an amazing thing. And it can only be extracted through alcohol. It can only be taken out through alcohol. And so in this document that I sent, which I can link in here, or you can reach out to me, or it's literally in my bio on my Instagram. If you go in there and just go, like, my top 8 medicinal mushrooms in there, it's sitting, like, right in my bio. So that's at Urban_Botanica_collective. So I'm happy because that resource there, I sell tinctures and I sell medicinal powders. So that's my kind of involvement. I guess that's why I'm part of this education process. I'll just throw that in there. That's IG. Now, a little bit more on terpenoids, because this is a really important part to touch. Just because, so what happens is we have, like, an insane amount of We have an insane amount of cells moving through our body daily. And some of these cells sometimes go through this cellular stage of apoptosis, which just essentially means it's like a cellular suicide. And when it kills itself, it's just a very sick cell. And so when it like starts to recreate itself into another cell, it can just lead to kind of like a damaged cell, which can sometimes be turned into like a cancerous kind of situation, because it's like a tumor. And now these terpenoids, when they come into your immune system, they kind of are like supporting your immune system. And you can kind of think of your immune system as being like bodyguards, and they're sitting there at all these different kind of connective points of your body, and they're going, and they're scanning everything. They're looking for viruses, they're looking for parasites, they're looking for damaged cells. And when they find that thing, they'll just go up and either release like these hectic chemicals that will like kill it, or they'll like walk up and absorb that thing and eat it and metabolize it and get it out of the system. So this is a really kind of beneficial compound for us to be getting, just to help trigger the immune system to really stay vigilant, to be really doing that work that we need it to do every single day. And typically speaking, for humans, like we're living in very volatile kind of conditions. Like right now, I'm in a painted room with treated timber, and there's a carpet on the ground, and constantly there's volatile chemicals coming out of everything I own. So we're naturally, our immune system is dealing with a lot more stuff than it used to when we were living, not like this. Ergothioneine. So 7% of our body's daily energy goes into producing glutathione, which is like ergothioneine is created to converts into that. Now, this is naturally created by the liver, and this is just the body's ability to actually repair the body and just like create that that system and that order for the body to keep repairing and healing constantly, like all over the body. This is a water-soluble kind of compound, and this is a very rare compound to just be finding in things. Like it's in animal meats, but to find in mushrooms is a really great thing, because just by, I guess, like cooking some mushrooms, you're naturally getting some ergothioneine, which is really, really amazing. And yeah, once again, it's just another thing for your immune system. Trehalose. So this is a disaccharide, and it's found in really high concentrations of animals that have a resistance to freezing. And so what that really means is it's like, what's the integrity of the cell? So how well is the cell going to deal under like cold and heat and like dehydration and all these things? So how well can that cell live? And trehalose is something that is found in mushrooms, and it just helps with our cellular health, so that each one of our cells just stays really, really strong. Considering we're made up of cells, this is a really important point. Okay, so phenolic is this is like when we're really starting to break down compounds and only look at it as one thing. I don't really like that, because when we have something, we're getting a vast array of compounds and things that are coming with this, which actually help it get delivered into the body properly. But this is just really just a little bit of a scope into just some of the like anti-inflammatory, all these different things that we can be helping our body. So like phenolic is kind of like this like adaptogen type situation. It just kind of helps with helping our body move antioxidants and how the antioxidant activity is happening in our body. And antioxidants, as you can see, they really help with like anti this, anti that. And we're getting antioxidants from many different things. Like mushrooms aren't the only thing we can be getting antioxidants from. Phenolic is just one of those compounds that is helping with this. Finally, lintelin. So we actually had our first HIV cure like a few months ago, like fully 100% cured. And we have to thank bees, and we also have to thank this amazing beta-glucan that comes out of Shiitake mushrooms. So this was extracted, it was put into capsule form and was given with the other medicines to help with the HIV cure, which is freaking amazing. Like this has been a big fear of us, like even in my generation. HIV kind of was found out about in my generation, and we were like, oh shit, we don't have any cure. Like we've literally been able to cure something that we had a massive fear over, just like, COVID. Like COVID also was a massive fear-based response to nature creating something, or I don't know how it was created, we won't go into it, but yeah, we are having answers to things that we don't need to worry about anymore, which is really, really amazing. And then finally, this was just for anyone who wanted to know a little bit more about psilocybin. I'd highly recommend checking out the Stamets stack method, which is just a breakdown of dosages of psychedelic mushrooms, B12, and also having lion's mane, which is a type of medicinal mushroom that's a nootropic. And then another really amazing theory is the Stone Ape theory, which you can check out. And it's just this whole theory. And I actually have a podcast, so I'll float that at the end. But it's called Born from Nature with Monty Sharma, and I actually have an episode on the Stone Ape theory, and we really explains the evolutionary chain of how we got here as humans, and the whole role of psychedelic mushrooms in the brain evolution and this cognitive, me just talking to you now and you being able to comprehend that, how cognitive kind of awareness came about. Now, I have been fighting a flu here. It's winter. I'm just going to blow my nose while I'm muted. So give me one sec. Oh. I'm slowly dying of all my flus from my nephew. He's been bringing it home from daycare. But, I've got immune mushrooms, so I'm not even afraid. 1.5 million species of mushrooms exist on this earth. Now, that's just a really big number in my head. So let's kind of put that into context. Think about every single plant you've ever seen in your life, like every single plant, like from the time that you were born to now. Now times that by 3. And that's roughly within the same kind of bandwidth of understanding just how many mushrooms there are on this planet. It's absolutely insane. Now, only 20,000 of those actually produce mushrooms. So a lot of them are just living in an underground or like inoculated based kind of mycelial state. They don't ever create any mushrooms, which is super interesting, because this will lead us into the next part. I'm trying to get through this stuff quick because we're running out of time. But this was a study that Paul Stamets did. His team got involved into trying to clean up an oil spill. Now, there was 3 different piles. There was a standard pile, which they just left covered. The second pile where they used the traditional cleaning agents. And then finally, the last pile was inoculated with white oyster mushrooms. Now, when they took 1 to 2% of this soil, it brought up readings of anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 ppm, which is an insane amount of like crude oil. It's like literally like you wouldn't want to be going near this pile. Now, 16 weeks later, they sampled the soil again. There's only 200 ppm left. And if you look at the bottom pile, what's happening there? There's plants growing on it. There's plants growing in crude oil contaminated soil, which is like freaking amazing. Now, this is like how that's happened is the mushrooms are fruited. the insects have come to eat the mushrooms. The birds then come to eat the insects. The birds have brought seeds, and now the seeds are sitting in the seed bank of crude oil soil. And that's why there's plants there, because mushrooms are like the web of life. They are there when something dies, and then they create new life for that thing to go into its next transition. Because we're all just molecules and nutrients and stuff. So we're never actually waste. We're never dead. We're just moving from one cycle to the other. And this is just one amazing thing that mushrooms can really help us with, because we still need to rely on fossil fuels and hydrocarbons for a little bit longer until we transit away from that. I wish we could go quicker, but we can't, because that's just the way things are, I guess. Filtering our water. So mushrooms are really interesting. They breathe oxygen just like us. Now, when water touches them, they actually absorb the water, and they kind of like filter through the mycelium, clean the water. So what they've been doing is they've actually been inoculating concrete with oyster mushrooms, and then essentially using them as little like floating kind of foundations on like water. The screen share stuck on Ganodermic Acid. Is the screen stuck on Ganodermic Acid for anyone else, or is that just bugging for Elizabeth? I wonder if okay. Yeah, Elizabeth, you might want to just close and then reopen. I think you might have a buggy presentation. Just yeah. Okay, cool. So they've been using the foundations of concrete and then building cities on it, then next to water, because when the water moves into the concrete, the mushrooms are naturally filtering it. And they've also been doing this with calcium-rich concrete. And so when we get calcium-rich concrete, what naturally happens here on the East Coast, at least, is oysters start to form on the concrete. And oysters are a really important part of cleaning our river systems. So this is a type of technology called mycorrhizal, where we're essentially just getting mushrooms and applying it to a problem, and then using that mushroom technology to solve the problem. So we're just learning about all these different ways that we can decontaminate our environment passively, just on a day-to-day basis. It's just happening. And trying to clean our earth. Now, this is a really interesting one. We can't play the video today because it's a TED Talk. So just type in Infinity Burial Project online, and this is like this massive problem that we don't really think about. And it's like this whole process of death and how we're like putting bodies into caskets and then trying to preserve them underneath the ground, and logging and clearing land to then make cemeteries. It's like this really weird way that we're like kind of dealing with dead humans. And this Infinity Burial Project essentially in a crux is you get your hair, you get your skin samples, you send it to a lab, the lab cultivates. So any mushroom in the world, typically speaking, like there's probably a few that can't be, but white oyster mushrooms specifically can be trained to eat almost anything, like absolutely everything. So what you do, you send your samples in, and they train these mushrooms to actually eat you, which is pretty hectic. So everyone's, it seems like two people are having the same problem. Okay, cool. Hopefully that's all fixed for you guys now. Whoever was seeing the Ganodermic Acid thing. And so we train these mushrooms to eat our body when we're dead. And awesome, that's good to hear. And we put ourselves in this mushroom suit. As you can see, Jay here, she's sitting in a mushroom suit, and these mushrooms come along and start to break down our body back into soil, which is the way it should be. We should be becoming topsoil again. And this just really directly kind of creates this this opportunity for us to really look at the way that, because our bodies, we're accumulating heavy metals, chemicals and stuff. So if we burned our body, for example, all those chemicals and all those heavy metals would just go back into the air, back into someone else or something. So this is a really great way, because mushrooms have an amazing ability to break anything down and decontaminate environment. So turning that thing back into soil, so then it can just become humus to grow something again. Just so freaking epic. There's like a really groundbreaking kind of tech that I think should be available everywhere. Now, the last bit of our talk, we're just going to be talking about food. We're just talking about food production, because everyone loves eating a super delicious mushroom. Like me personally, anyone who doesn't like mushrooms, if I cook the mushrooms, they typically like, I've been cooking mushrooms wrong my whole life. Now, this is a really interesting thing, because as we maintain our land and use our land, we're eventually going to be handing that land over to the next person. And the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. So actually really thinking generationally. I think that's a massive mindset that we need to like wrap our head around. And as a permaculturist, I really believe in, fair share, really thinking about how we're sharing our things, thinking about people and thinking about the earth, like constantly, like just constantly embodying those things, because it's not an infinite resource. And so this is going to flow back into mushrooms, but I just wanted to wrap my head around wrap you guys around syntropic gardening. I haven't checked this stuff out. It's really, really amazing. So as you can see here, we've kind of got this forest, but this is a man-made forest. So we create these massive trees that are accumulating nutrients, putting nitrogen back in the ground, creating lots of compost. They can be dropping lots of leaves. And here in Australia, we use acacias and like red cedars and stuff like that to just help. These would be like our engine trees. And then in kind of like the shrubbery, the low canopy, we're planting in our fruit trees and our, like our bananas, apples. And then down the very bottom, we're doing like maybe some vegetables or some perennial plants that are going to be constantly creating food throughout the year. So we're pretty much essentially generating food forests, which is the way that our ancestors were living anyways. We would have found and been testing seeds in the soil and going, oh, this is like a food source that we can come back seasonally. We used to be seasonal eaters. We couldn't be ordering an apple from Brazil and then eating it in an off season. We really were having to scavenge our food. We were scavengers. And syntropic gardening, there's kind of some major key points which really flow well into fungi. Is we keep our soil covered. By keeping our soil covered, we're retaining moisture. Mushrooms love moisture. Here, we just had some hectic floods, dropped like an insane amount of water over, the last few months. And I went out to the state forest, and there's like frogs coming out everywhere. There's mushrooms coming out everywhere. There's insects coming out everywhere. There's birds like doing massive, humongous feasts out of like fish breeding grounds and stuff. Like water is this amazing element that exists on our planet and just generates so much life. So if we're keeping our soil covered, we're creating good biological activity, bacteria, the whole food web, insects, everything, including fungi, to keep the soil healthy. And then next, maximize photosynthesis. Now, just by specific placement, we can allow sunlight through. This creates humidity. It creates the opportunity for new things to grow. Stratification was just like soil management and just like organizing, creating a natural order. Synchronization, so we're always thinking about how things are working together. Natural succession, so that just creating a natural order of maintaining the land. So we're not like monocropping the land. We're like really ensuring the development of the land. So working it back into a state of abundance. And then finally, just managing it, and this can, once the food forest is developed, can be very little amount of management. Now, how this all feeds in is creating that abundance. Now, when we do this, we invite insects, carnivores, herbivores, we have slugs, we have worms, we have this amazing variety of things that come. Now, also, the really important part of this picture is you'll see here, we've got some polypores, we've got some King Strophoria mushrooms, and we've got some reishi. Now, we've actually got some Psilocybin mushrooms here as well. Now, the importance of these 3 particular species, these have actually been scientifically proven now to be helping bees all over the world. So what bees have been observed doing and also been studied and proven, they are flying around onto these mushrooms, landing on them and suckling the juices out of from the surface of the mushroom. Now, why are they doing that? Because obviously we have a few different problems that are happening with bees. There's mites, there's a virus which is giving them small wings, and their immune systems just don't have the capacity in which they used to because of our natural tendencies as humans to be deforesting things, just changing the ecology too rapidly, and they haven't been able to adapt. Now, these 3 particular mushrooms, each one of them has a different medicinal benefit for the bees. Some are helping the immune system to help them fight off mites, and some are helping with specifically the Ganodermic mushrooms, so Ganodermic being like the reishi. These are helping the bees fight off that virus so that they can ensure that they remain healthy. Now, that is just like the whole food web. Thinking at this level, where we're not just thinking about us, we're thinking about all the other things that are in our local ecology and trying to support them as well. This is a really, really powerful concept to wrap your head around, because once we're doing that, we're literally partnering not only with each other, but with nature. And nature is a very powerful force that can really change a lot in like 100 years. We could completely change everything in about 100 years. I mean, the industrial age was around 100 years ago, and look at how much the world has changed. So, yeah. So finally, mycorrhizal powders. So we were growing ginger up at the farm that I'm working at, and this is a really beneficial. So essentially what it is, it's a mycorrhizal powder that you put onto the root stock of your vegetables. And how this helps is, so before I say that, 80 to 90% of pretty much all the plants in the world can have some type of mycorrhizal association. Now, particularly in this ginger that we were growing, creating that mycorrhizal powder, which is just this powder which you just dab it on the roots, you put it into the ground, and this mycelial network connects all the root systems. So when we dug in, we saw these amazing white fibers connecting all the root systems. And this interconnects the plants to actually communicate. So for example, here you can see these caterpillars eating away at the leaves. The plants can actually communicate through the root system to go, hey guys, just an FYI, I've been very slowly eaten by caterpillars. Start increasing your phototropic chemicals or your essential oils in your leaves. So when the caterpillars get to you, they won't be able to eat you. And this is an amazing benefit to plants, because instead of spraying them with pesticides, right, and putting all these chemicals into our food, we're just making them more aware of their surroundings so that they can make better choices about how they grow. So just by introducing mycorrhizal powders, there's a few things that happen. We interconnect the plants to be able to help them communicate, fight off disease. So mushrooms also help with the immune health of just keeping if the roots are healthy, the rest of the plant is going to be really healthy. And then, finally, just helping them communicate the dangers that are going to be impacting them. And mycorrhizal fungi also, like, they don't need this like heavy composted, wet, lush rainforest to exist in the ecosystem. I've actually found mycorrhizal fungi like literally in the desert. So they're everywhere. And that's a really kind of amazing thing to feel within our body. Now, this is the podcast, The Born from Nature. I've been a bit slow kind of coming out of COVID, but we've got heaps more episodes coming up. It's on all major platforms. It's called the Born from Nature podcast, and this particular season is called Awakening Purpose. This is the Powered by Mycelium kind of presentation. I'm your host, Monty Sharma. And now that I've done this mycelial download to you guys, you're all part of the network. You can feel a little bit more strength in knowing that you're not alone, and nature is here to support you into your future. And thank you all for coming. And I now welcome any questions. So, I don't know what the natural process here is. I don't know if we can like unmute people or whatnot. But we've got 22 people in here. So really, really, really amazing stuff going on in here. If you guys enjoyed. Okay, cool. Yeah, write your questions in the chat and we can... is it hard to get into mycology? Now, this is a really interesting one because I guess without a bachelor's degree or a doctorate in mycology, you will always be considered an amateur mycologist. Now, does anyone know what amateur means when we look back in the root of language? Does anyone know? Does anyone know what amateur means? The root of the word amateur is amor, which means to love. You do it for the love. Now, the reason why I show up in mycology is for the love and for the grounding in knowledge. Like, knowledge is power to me. Now, there's so many different avenues you can go down, Nora, for mycology. Like I'm kind of a naturalist, so I'm looking at how I can partner with fungi in my systems. I'm trying to understand how I can stack many functions in my life. So stacking functions just means that like I can do multiple things at the same time, even just while I'm sleeping. Like, for example, like you could just get into just focusing on medicinal mushrooms, or you could go into focusing, restoring natural ecosystems with fungi. It's such an untapped knowledge base at the moment, and we need more people. We need more people to be getting interested in fungi and bringing the world of fungi to the main world in a really supportive and educated way. In forms of like how I got into it, I went to Costa Rica. I did a certification in mycology, and that was with Ecology Academy. And I just had some really good teachers. I had that catalyst of curiosity, and I've just been doing that ever since. And now I'm, here in Australia. Our mushroom season is from early in the year to about last month. And I ran like 170 people through mushroom walks here on the East Coast. And I started from nothing. So I think if you do something for the love, I think although you may be considered an amateur, I don't think that's a negative connotation, because you look at Paul Stamets, who is he holds the highest amount of mushroom-based patents in the world. He has like all these amazing mushroom technologies. He also sells medicinals. and he's worked with the American BioShield program on developing resilience in our health. And he hasn't got a bachelor's degree, and he actually has a podcast where he talks about, he's like, degrees have a place in this world. I mean, I have a degree, but it's in a completely different area. But I think it takes more people to go down a non-traditional route of getting involved in this stuff, because you're going to choose paths that typical literature-based, bachelor-based mushroom people just aren't going to take, because you're thinking differently. And that's something that kind of happens with mushrooms anyways. So hopefully that's helpful to your question. I think if you love something, just do it. If it feels good in your heart, just do it. But yeah, I've got lots of I would highly recommend mushroom identification books that are you'll be able to find them. Arnaldo just asked, have I written any articles or maintain a resource on the wonders of mycology? So I'd say my podcast is probably the place where I do that. Now, I also have a bunch of resources that I have free and available to anyone, which are you can access through my link tree in my bio of my Instagram. But I also plan on probably running some more online based kind of stuff. So that actually learning about edible fungi. So the reason why I run those mycology walks here in Australia is because we're pretty not versed in mushroom culture. There's still a lot to learn here. In forms of courses, it's hard because where are you based? Nimvitia? Did I say that right? I hope I did. Whereabouts are you based? Because your local ecology, like your natural topography, your local ecology is going to dictate what you can and can't eat. And I think you really need to be guided by someone who knows what to look for. And that's why I actually recommended getting a mushroom identification book as well. I highly recommend that. I've got 2 books here that just specialize on East Coast mushrooms of Australia. And it has all the different species, the physical identification processes. We do have some permaculture places here in Australia, which also you can go to their farm and they run mushroom courses. So maybe looking at some local permaculture courses that are around mycology, I'm sure it's definitely happening. Even though I think Australia is the heart, that's where permaculture was made, the whole ethos. So there's probably a lot more permaculture places here, but I'm sure for sure there'd be someone around you. Now, what I will do as well is I'll throw in that mushroom resource, because I did say I was going to do that. Now, this is a really, it's a great visual breakdown. Actually, I might float it. I might just float it here, and then you guys can... Yes, you can see. Okay, cool. So this here is just in... I'll chuck it in chat. So you guys can check it out. This is a full breakdown of studied and researched stuff, and then the may support stuff. So for example, the Terpenoids turkey tail, which was sold out across the world when coronavirus was happening, because it's an antiviral and coronavirus is a virus. So it also has been used for cancer. That's absolutely happening. It's been happening clinically. And Yeah, lion's mane was also mentioned. So this is the nootropic that you have with the Stammet stack method. This stuff, the lady who founded lion's mane, she lived to 103 years old. I have no idea how she figured that out, but holy crap, like, yeah, absolute game changer. And I think between nootropics and adaptogens, those are two medicinal kind of expressions of nature, like from medicinals, that you really want to be trying to have daily. And also, please note that you will only get the cognitive brain enhancing effects of this if you do an alcohol extraction. You need to have the alcohol extraction. And there's two different ways. You can do a powder or you can do a tincture. And a tincture is just a liquid extraction. So they do a water extraction and an alcohol extraction. And then a powder, you want to hope that they've done an alcohol extraction so you get all the benefits. So you don't waste your money. This is the shiitake. Not only delicious, but also has a wealth of other things that it does. This is the amazing Ganoderma reishi. So this is the one that has the Ganodermic Acid. Yeah, it's known as like the heart. It's like back in the day, like, so it used to be called the mushroom of immortality, and it used to be only given to essentially the royal families. They did it for like a rice alcohol kind of wine, and yeah. Also got cordyceps, which are the parasitic fungi, which have the fruited bodies that come out. We've got the pleurotus. Oyster mushroom. Really, like, so interesting fact about this. So 100 grams of chicken breast versus 100 grams of oyster mushroom, there's only a 2% difference in protein between them. So there's 23% protein in an oyster mushroom. So it's jam-packed full of nutrients, but also a great meat substitute. Chaga, which is one that's really getting used quite highly with coffee, like a chaga coffee. This one we need to be careful of because it only grows on old growth birch trees at the moment. So it's a bit unsustainable to be eating, but damn, it's a really good mushroom. And then, yeah, just your standard field mushroom, like the agaricus, whole agaricus family, all like just really great. Anti-carcinogenic, carcinogenics being like volatile chemicals and stuff. Yeah, like something that we all need in our life. Any other questions at all? It's been really great having you guys along. This is my first partnership, so really stoked to be here and have just presented. We keep finding so many new ones. Is there a platform where we could share it to you for purposes of identification or learning it further? Yes. So there's a really amazing app that I use. So you can message me directly. I think I'm receiving a few direct messages from people, which I will read after the event. So this is a really amazing app. Now, how this works is I'm just going to log in off screen so that does not become a problem. Log in. Cool. Now, iNaturalist is a really amazing app. Now, the reason why this is amazing is three things. So I've got like 110 observations here. So here is that amazing Huntsman spider that I said I found. You can see geo-references, so you can see where I found it. You put a few different observations in, and now it has an AI system that scans the images through the AI, and then it will give a genus. And it's pretty damn good at getting a genus. This is probably not the best example. I'm going to go find one which has lots of different comments on it. Here we go. This is the Amanita that I found. And there's other people that can come in and go, hey, I think it's this, I think it's that. And you got other georeference tags of other people finding it in the area. So that can also be a great indicator to know whether you've found the right species. Now, I wouldn't be using this app to eat mushrooms, but I would definitely be using this app to learn more about mushrooms, because it's a very, very, very massive amount of data that you need to decompress to be able to really identify mushrooms. So so it'll help you get a genus. Secondly, other people can help you with those observations. And finally, all the information is completely open source. So say, for example, someone in another country, let's go down to my Costa Rica finds. There's some really epic freaking animals that I found. A bit of a photographer as well. I really enjoy capturing. So you can see it works for fungi, animals, plants. It works for everything. So it's called iNaturalist up in the top left, just here. Yeah, so here's this amazing boa that I found sitting in the gap of a tree. And so we had a whole bunch of other people come in confirming that it was a Central American boa. And then once 3 people have confirmed it, it gets sent away to a specialist. And that specialist then goes, hey, it's definitely this, which is great. So just by helping you guys find what you need to find. Now, next question. Hopefully that's helpful. Have you seen or heard anything related to the use of mushrooms as a means of communication? If mycorrhizal powders connect plants, could they be used as a sort of chemical telephone wire to collect data from plants at a distance? That is such an interesting question, Spencer. Look, like, for example, like Plant Wave, which is you can connect to plants. We can also use that Plant Wave to connect to mushrooms. And if you go on YouTube and type in Plant Wave mushroom, you'll find a whole symphony of sounds that are created by mushrooms. And this technology is relatively new. We are still trying to just decipher, I guess, like one sound wave from another, like what each species it makes. Like, they're trying to communicate with us, but technology and I guess our disconnection from nature has really put when I say I mean indigenous communities are really still in there. They're really in it. But us, just generally speaking, first world, second world, we're just disconnected from the communication. So yeah, we're trying to build that relationship. That really interesting question. I'm really not sure, but yeah, I guess the sound waves, by hearing those sound waves, it's a type of communication, just like our dog, it barks and, squeals and yelps and stuff at us. That's a type of communication, but they can't speak English, but they can understand. So we're trying to kind of do the same thing with mushrooms. Denny, you mentioned permaculture is big in Australia. Do you want other countries, what other countries are flourishing in this area? I think for sure, like agriculture-based, people who have been growing a lot of food are definitely applying a lot of permaculture-based principles to their growing systems. So like, for example, Fiji is really good. Costa Rica, like a lot of the Americas are really versed in permaculture. Like I know a lot of people, because permaculture is like a framework that can be applied to almost anything. So like, it's not only based around food, it can also be based around architecture. So for example, like, your little hobbit homes that are built into the earth, like a lot of like European countries have been doing that for a very long time, using permaculture-based frameworks now to reinstill that type of culture into their building systems, into their building codes. Same as New Zealand. Like even, oh man, honestly, all over the freaking world, like permaculture is used. Like there's parts of like Israel where they've like been able to like pump some type of clay into their desert soil, and then it's created like fertile ground, and now they're developing like syntropic food forests out of this clay. Like it's just helping us grasp the idea of creating natural systems for that have the intention of humans and plants and animals all in mind, so we can all like kind of flourish from what we do, the actions that we create. Whereas like, you know, like I keep coming back to it, monocropping, it's just reaping the land until it's dead and can't give anymore, you know, like just stripping topsoil. So the biggest job we have is actually to partner with fungi to create regenerative, solutionary based thinking around the world so that we can overcome these massive problems that we're encountering today. You know, we've got a big awakening, I think, that's happening right now, a humongous awakening around the way that we're living, the way that we're eating, the way that we're building. Like all these things are happening, and I'm really excited about the future. You know, like I think it's really easy to get lost in all the negatives, but that's really why I showed up. I guess that's why I show up, is because I guess just from that presentation, there'd be a sense that, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Just from the perspective of mushrooms, not to mention all the other amazing talkers that were part of this summit. Like it's a really amazing thing to know that there are people out there doing amazing things. And permaculture is relatively free as well. So third world countries like India, even India, is really been taking on a lot of permaculture-based technologies. So this was able to identify Colodalakari, type of toucan. Got other people coming in here tell me it's Colodalakari. So yeah, I highly recommend this. iNaturalist. And yeah, also like reach out for my Instagram if you guys want anything. If you guys find mushrooms, like I'll try my best, but the best really should have shown you the right way to take photos of mushrooms. So when you're taking photos of mushrooms, there's 3 photos that you 100% want to take. Now, these include an upside down photo, so just getting the gills. You want to get a top photo, and then if you can, a cross-sectional photo. Now, this will give me a good indicator of, and then also like a geographical location. Where are you located? If you can send me those 4 things, I would be able to help you figure out what the mushroom is. Happy to do it through the chat, you know, like a few times. May share some resources that might be helpful to you. And yeah, this will just be the catalyst to you finding. Once you start learning, there's just so like, can you post that link one more time? Was that the medicinal mushroom one or the iNaturalist medicinal mushroom? My Instagram? Which link? We've also only got about 2 more minutes, guys. So I think this to identify mushrooms. So this is iNaturalist. So feel free to download, head over there, and you know, sign yourself up. Become my friend. You can become my friend if you want. We can be friends. Pretty sure we can. Yeah. So if you just type in Monty_Sharma, you can add me as a friend. We can see all the cool things that we're doing. You can also make projects. This is one that I did in Putumayo, which is in one of the biggest permaculture centers, and we made like a bioregion, and now anyone who tags a photo in that bioregion, we get a notification. So we got like jade vines. Oh man, what a cool plant! Check this thing out. Have you ever seen a color like that in your life, naturally in nature? What the heck? How cool is that? No worries, Ronaldo. Thanks for coming, man. Really enjoyed my time here. I'm a little bit sick. I wish I wasn't so nasally for the talk, but yeah. So that was a whole planned thing. Paul Stamets just yeah, they asked him if he wanted to be part of the Star Trek thing, and yeah, it's this little inside joke. So cool. I love it. I think we're going to end, like it's 11:29 now, so it's less than a minute before we close. I want to thank you all for coming, and I think it's going to cut out. I really don't know what's going to happen, but it's like that little electric, someone's got like an electric shock button. And it's like it's going to happen, but we don't know what's going to happen. When's it going to happen? I don't know, man. Thank you so much for coming. Ticked over. I don't know. Did anything happen? It's still happening. What is partying, man? Late night party, after party. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, Benny. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. You guys were all very fun. Feel free to reach out, follow me on Instagram, find my website, send me an email, any of the above. Love to hear from you guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting World Rainforest Day. See you guys.